How many people do you interact with on a day-to-day basis at work? 3, 5, maybe 7? Chances are there are a few people who you work with more often than others. And I believe that investing the time in managing and nurturing these relationships can pay dividends at work. It means that things run more smoothly when things are going well, and that you can resolve problems more quickly when they're not going so well. And today I'm going to bring you through my step-by-step process and supporting template to manage those key relationships. My name is Niamh and I am on a mission to help you feel more calm, confident and in control of your workday by teaching you new ways to manage your time, energy and attention. And everything is very, very practical, just like the template we're going to go through. So let's get into it. First of all, why bother? Why take the time to fill in a template like this and have the conversations with the people you work with most often? Well, let me break it down for you. Everyone is busy these days. We all have a lot going on, whether at work, or at home, or both. And it means that as much as people want to help you and want to support you, it's likely that you're not always the top of their to-do list. Hard to believe, I know. But once we do believe and accept that fact, we can understand that the more we can appreciate the other person's perspective, meet them where they're at, and better communicate our needs, the easier things are going to be for both parties. And that's why I believe that taking a little bit of time to truly understand your key relationships, how they impact your work, and how you can communicate with people more effectively will really allow you to move more smoothly through your tasks, get things done a lot quicker with less back and forth and less frustration on both ends. So the first step, the first column in the template is to write down people's names. This is a pretty easy step just to get you into it. I want you to list the 5 to 7 people that you work with most often. So either you meet with them most often, they ask you the most questions, they email you most, all of that. So if in doubt, take a look at your inbox, take a look at your calendar and list the top 5. I'm guessing your manager is going to be one of them. Once you know who your people are, I want you to write down their role. Now slow down and don't get ahead of yourself, because I don't mean their job title and I don't mean the department that they work in. While that information is helpful, what I care about is their role in relation to your work. So let me see. Do they approve your work? Do you need them to make decisions? Do you need them to move forward to the next stage? Do you need information from them to be able to do your step? Do you need to give them information as part of the whole flow of things? How does their work impact your work and how does your work impact them? That's what I mean by role. So in this column, you could write down approver, you could write down decision maker, you could write down gives information, receives information, just a couple of words to understand what that is. And what we're doing here is really building a picture of the landscape of your job and how you engage with different people. Now I want to get really honest and understand their level of interest and influence in your work. So again, I'm not talking about their interest and influence in your team, the organization as a whole. It's you and the stuff that you're currently working on, whether that's a particular project or a client or the tasks that are on your desk right now. Not everybody is going to be very interested in your work. And this was the piece I used to struggle the most with, because I would try to force people to move my stuff to the top of their to-do list without ever considering that they have other things on their mind and that my work was not the center of the corporate universe. I'm exaggerating, of course, but I did try to always push my agenda to the top, and that didn't always work because my agenda shouldn't always have been at the top of their list, and it caused knock-on impact that caused stress for people, caused meetings where there shouldn't be meetings, and you know how the story goes. So understand what their level of interest is in your work at the moment. Where are you on their to-do list? Do they have a high level of interest? Do they have a low level of interest? And once you know that, then it's time to be honest in terms of what influence they have on that work. So for example, if they have a low level of interest, but they don't have much influence, then it's not really a problem. And low influence would mean that they don't approve anything, they don't reject anything, and their opinion, while it is considered, it doesn't stop or stall things, okay? So perhaps they have going to be impacted in a small way by the work that you're doing or something like that. On the other hand, if they've got a low level of interest and a high influence, which means that they either say yes or no to different stages of your work, or their opinion really matters and could cause a lot of conversations or meetings, then you really want to make sure that whatever interest they do have, that you take advantage of that and you get what you need to get done in those moments of time that you have with them. So again, here, their level of influence isn't necessarily as an organization or as a team, it's in relation to your work. And that's why the job title doesn't really matter in terms of the official job title, because somebody could be a VP or a director and they might have very little interest or influence in a project you're working on. And you could have somebody who's on a graduate program and they're not with the company that long. And because your work has a huge impact on them, they have a lot of interest and a lot of influence. So people are listening to their feedback and people want to make sure that their concerns are addressed. So you can see now what I'm saying. It's all in relation to the work that you're doing, the things that are on your plate at the moment. So you have their name, you have their role, their level of interest in the work that you're doing, their level of influence in terms of stopping or progressing your work. And now I want to understand how they like to be communicated with. And I'm not going to ask you to tailor every single message that you send to each person's preference, because that would be insane. You would be working all the hours of the week, and that's not what I want. I expect that 80 to 90% of your communication will happen through whatever form you do most often. But the rest of it, I want you to make sure that you send through the other person's preferred channel. And the reason I say that is because if you have something that's important that you need to say, you need to make sure that they hear you and that they're going to respond to you. You're going to use the channel that they prefer. There is no point me sending you a 7-paragraph email if you don't do long email, if you prefer to have a meeting. There is no point me sending you 10 MS Teams messages if you don't really engage in Teams only for light chit chat and you are an email person. And I won't know what the preference is until I ask. So this is where we start having the conversation with the other person to say, well, first of all, we would have asked, where is my stuff on your priority list? And now we're asking, when I need you, what's the best way to communicate with you? And while you're there, it's worth asking 2 more questions. And that is, how can you help me? And how could you block me? And you don't have to use that exact language. So let me explain what I mean. And you can use whatever language suits you. So how can the other person help you is obvious. You want to know what they can do to help you get the job done. It could be as straightforward as, I can get you the information. But it could also be things like, well, I have done that similar project before. So if you get stuck, have a chat with me. I could give you some advice. It could be, I know people in department X, Y, and Z. So if you aren't hearing back from them, give me a call. All those things can really help, and you won't know unless you ask. And on the blocker side, you might have somebody who is very eager to help you. So they have a high level of interest in the work, high level of interest, and are keen for you to succeed. And then you ask, is there anything that could get in the way of the support? The person might want to help as much as they can, but they might not be available. Perhaps they've got time off coming up. Maybe they have a lot of meeting themselves. Maybe their own workload is very heavy. So while they're willing to support you and while they know how they can help you, they don't necessarily have the capacity to do it. And even having that conversation is great because it sets your expectations, both of your expectations, in terms of how much you can get support from that person. And also, it kind of gets the wheels in motion in terms of, well, how can they help you anyway? So they might not be able to meet you as much as they'd like, but maybe they could have a quick phone call with you. Or again, they'll say, look, I can't meet you, but if you do need me, email me because I will check my email. And it's only when you have the conversations in terms of how can you help me and what's going to get in the way of you helping me that you can figure out the plan B, plan C, all the way down to plan Z if needed. And finally, once you know all that, you write down the management strategy. Now, that's probably the wrong word to use. I haven't found a better word for it. But what I mean is, once you know what the person's role is in relation to your work and how interested they are in what you're doing and their level of influence, how they're going to help you and how you need to maybe manage any limitations around that, so how they could get in your way. You're going to consider how best to manage the person. And I'll give you 2 extreme examples and then you can probably fill in the middle yourself. So the first example would be someone who's got a high level of interest in your work, a high level of influence. They help you because they're an approver, so they can sign off at each stage, but they're going to block you because they're very busy, so they're often in back-to-back meetings, which means that they're probably going to come to you for updates seemingly out of the blue, but basically whenever they have a minute, they're going to be checking in with you because they're very interested. So in that case, setting up a cadence of regular updates through the channel that suits them best and making sure that you can clearly signal when you need them to take action is going to work really well. So you might say, I'll send you an update every single Monday and Wednesday. It'll be by email. And if I need you to do something, I will put action required in the subject line. And that's how you're going to manage that person. And you might also agree that you're going to meet every 4 weeks to check in to see if anything's changing. At the other end of the scale, then there might be somebody who's got a low level of interest and a low level of influence, but you still need to keep them informed because your work is impacting them in some way. And there might be multiple people that fall into this bucket, and you might decide that you are going to send them an email update once every 2 weeks. That outlines it. But perhaps you find out through your conversation that they actually prefer to have a meeting. In that case, you might say, look, I'm going to schedule a 10-minute update meeting at the same frequency. And if you miss it, I'll record it and I'll send you out the link. So here we're not, again, contacting everybody to the same extent or with the same amount of effort, because it does depend on what they need from you and what you need from them. But you're being more considerate, and it really does add up. And that's what I mean by the management strategy. Just take a look at all the information you've gathered and say, how can I make the most of this relationship so that I'm supporting them and that they can also support me when it's needed. If you want to use the template, there is a link to it in the description. You can use it on paper, you can use it digital, you can copy it onto a whiteboard. I don't mind. You can add a column, and if you do add a column, I'd love to know what it is and let me know in the comments. And if you try this, let me know. I'd love to know in the comments if it was helpful to you. As always, I'm here to help you create a better workday. So if you found this helpful, please support me by liking it, sharing it with somebody who needs the help, and following my channel so that you'll get my next update. Until next time, stay well and have a better workday.